Is introduce yourself, Mr. Sullivan, right?
I introduced myself. Okay.
Wait,
It's recording.
Is there anything specific you want me to do,
or
or
like
just
Just
just give
say
like
your
a
name.
brief background of you.
Like,
okay? All right. My full name is Edmund Joseph Sullivan. Ed Sullivan is kind of a semi-famous name. Was this person. I don't know if you can see that. That person was Ed Sullivan, who had a very famous show. But my grandfather's name was Ed Sullivan, and my father's name's Ed Sullivan. My name's Ed Sullivan, but I'm not the third, though, because my middle name is different from theirs. So that kind of clears up my name thing, which you guys don't really probably know too much because you don't know who Ed Sullivan was. Right, okay. So I'm a native San Franciscan. I was born here in San Francisco many years ago. Born and raised. I've spent most of my life here. I went to college away. I went to college in Southern California. Went to Loyola Marymount University, where I studied theater arts. And I, studied that and trained as an actor for years. And then I moved back here to San Francisco and started working at Galileo High School as a paraprofessional in special education. And interesting fact that London Breed was a student at Galileo when I was there in the very early 90s, and she was very actually prominent in the school at that point. She had some office position. I don't know whether she was president of the school or something along that line. Anyway, that's just a brief introduction. I married 2 children, happily married 2 children. I live in Daly City. So 2 girls, both in college. They're doing fine. That's good. And I work at Lincoln, teaching college career education.
The second question is, what are some significant memories from your childhood?
Okay, significant memories from my childhood. That's interesting. I have one kind of a traumatic memory. When I was 3 years old, I think it was New Year's Day when I was 3. I remember my mother was upstairs putting my older brother, who was about 4 years older than me, in a bathtub. He had just been outside playing. And I think I had a little bit of a cold, kind of like I do now, kind of a little cold. And I was inside all day, and I remember walking down our stairs when she was upstairs and going into the kitchen and looking into a pot of boiling vegetables, and my pajamas caught fire. And I got burned severely. And I remember screaming, and my mom ran downstairs to see what was wrong. And she put the fire out, and I have a scar right here to this day, kind of a big scar. And I was in the hospital, 3 years old, for either 6 or 8 weeks. And it was not easy. That was a tough lesson to learn. Had a profound impact on my life, even though I was only 3, because your parents at that time could not stay in the hospital with you. They were not allowed to stay overnight. They could stay with you, but they were not allowed to stay overnight. So here I was, 3, alone at night in the hospital with strangers, nurses, doctors, in a lot of pain, totally stressed out. So that was a tough experience, and it manifested in interesting ways throughout my life in terms of how I then went about things and learning things and all kinds of that had a big impact. So
The next question is, what's the main reason why you started teaching?
Well, I started off as a theater major, and I think that there were a few things about that I really liked and things I didn't like. One thing I like about being an actor is that it's fun and it's great to be on stage, but it's also really, really stressful. Really, really stressful. You live with your character. Like when you're in a play, it was hard for me to kind of turn off the that idea that I had to go perform at nighttime. So it like lives with you all day, and that's fairly stressful. The other thing is that the odds of trying, going down to Hollywood and making it as an actor are really huge, right? They're against you. But that wasn't necessarily what deterred me. What deterred me was the fact that ultimately I wanted to be a father and a husband. And my idea was to get a teaching credential because I liked it. I liked because I was at Galileo, and I liked being in around kids and teenagers, and I liked the atmosphere. And that there was like, where do you want to spend your day? You know what I mean? And that was also, my father was an electrical contractor, so I would work with him part time. So I had a couple options. Do I go to Hollywood, pursue acting? Do I go work with my father as an electrical contractor? What do I think about teaching? Do I pursue teaching? Because I was getting encouraged to be a teacher when I was there. A lot of people said, you're really good at being a paraprofessional in special ed class. You should go and be a teacher. You should be a teacher. So that kind of I thought, well, maybe, that might be something I like to do. And I do. I like kids. I like to work with kids and help them and things like that. So there was the three things. The electrician thing didn't work because I did not want to be in that type of atmosphere. In attics, dusty attics, down in basements with grunge. I don't mind grunge, but I just couldn't see me. I didn't want to do that at that time on a daily basis. That's number one. Number two, the acting thing, I still like to do, and I still don't think I'm finished with it. But again, met my wife and understood that I want to be able to have a family, and we were going to live here, and that kind of changed my course. So I got into teaching and decided to work in special ed, and I was a special ed teacher for years and years and years before I changed to English and now college career. But I really wanted to help students with disabilities through 4 years of school and help them and let them know that there's room for them to not be discouraged by the fact that maybe their learning is a little different and they might struggle because there's still lots of it. You're very intelligent, even when you have disabilities. You're very intelligent in other ways. So that's what I wanted to do, was try and help those students through high school. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah.
So what made you want to work at Galileo?
Galileo? Well, I got the job at Galileo through a family friend. So when I came home from school, I went to graduate school at the National Theater Conservatory in Denver, Colorado. When I came back, the idea was to live at home first before I would go to Los Angeles. And then I needed a job. And our family friend, who was a special education teacher at Galileo, said, why don't you do what we call paraprofessional work? And that's where you work in a special education classroom and you can help. So she knew a friend at her job at Galileo who needed somebody. And that was where I started working at Galileo as a paraprofessional. So that's how I did it.
Was his name Mr. Wan?
No, it was her name was Miss Laudiver. Miss Laudiver. I think she's since retired, but our family friend also worked there in special ed. So she retired too. She's.
How long did you work there for?
I worked at Galileo from 90 to 95 or 6, something like that, as a para. But 1 year I was what's called a long-term sub. and I had my own class for a year.
Was that like English or like
It was special ed.
special ed?
All right, the next question is, do you have any influential people in your life you look up to?
Oh yeah. I very much. I had, aside from my parents, which is your generic answer. I mean, my father was great because he was super nice, really good person in life, like a really genuinely good person. My mother was kind of like the bad cop of the family, so she kept me on the straight and narrow. You know what I mean? And without her, two lenient parents wouldn't have been good for me. So I needed one to kind of keep me in check. And then my dad was kind of, but I knew that, and I appreciated them both. But other than that, I had a professor in college that I met who I went to CSM first. I went to St. Ignatius College Preparatory. I went to SI here. And then I went to community college at College of San Mateo. And I had a teacher who taught a film class. And he was incredible. And he and I got to be good friends, good close friends. I spent time with him. He was just a good person. And he passed away a while ago, unfortunately. I thought, kind of early on, he passed away. He got dementia. And it was hard. That was a tough thing. But he was a great influence. He really encouraged me to keep moving forward, to not get so discouraged. I had a tendency to get a little down if I failed at something and not try to recover. But he really helped me recover from some tough life's difficult moments.
Are there any people in your life you work hard for? Like,
my wife and kids, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's who you get up and go to work for. But you guys, I really believe that I'm here for a purpose. And I think it's not that I'm destined to be here or anything. It's not that. I don't think I'm that special. What I mean is, I'm motivated to help students. And sometimes it goes like it's up and down because sometimes they don't want it. They don't want that motivation, and they don't want you, and they don't like, you're the teacher that gives them, some people think, only bad news. You know what I mean? I have to give you assignments and work, and you might not like it, or you think it's boring. And therein lies kind of the teacher-student relationship. But yes, I work for my kids and my wife and most definitely the pupils at school.
I think you already said it, but can you say it again? Where did you get your credentials from?
I got my credential from San Francisco State. So I went to Loyola Marymount, CSM, transferred to Loyola Marymount, got my degree in theater arts, went to graduate school in Denver, and then came home and started doing the paraprofessional work. At the same time I was doing the para work, I was going to school to start my at SF State, just to get the credential rolling. And I did part-time. Each semester. I only took like 2 classes or 3 classes each. I only carried 6 units a semester because I didn't want to go full-time because I wanted to work still,
So you said you were an English teacher?
I was briefly.
Briefly? Well, like, why is that? Is there like...
Well, that was tough because so it got to a point where I was not enjoying what I was doing, teaching in special education. They had us doing many different things. They had us co-teach a class with a general ed. So when you're a special education teacher, you have a caseload. So you have to do what's called IEPs, individualized education plans, yearly. And those take a certain amount of time. And you have to do that for like 20 to 25 students. So you had to do those meetings and organize that and keep up on that. You also had to help students through school, through their education, tutor, that, you know, do a study. We did study skills classes. Then you also had to do co-teaching with another teacher in a regular education classroom. And all in all, there was just too many things to do. And I'm okay at multitasking, but I'm not that good. And I didn't feel I was doing any one of those jobs exceptionally well because I was doing too many things. And I thought that going and teaching general ed in English, because I had a credential in English. Forgot to say, I got a credential in special ed and a credential in English, kind of as a backup, right? So I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I got both. So I had my credential in English, and I was totally unsatisfied with the changes in special education. So I decided to apply for an English position. My philosophy, at the time it wasn't really my philosophy, but now it's become, you know, you have to be proactive. You need to go out. If you don't like your circumstances, you hold the power to change them. And you're either going to move on and deal and live with your certain amount of unhappiness, or you're going to change them. So when I did change to teaching English, I applied for the position, and at first I didn't get it, but there were some unfortunate circumstances had befallen an English teacher at school, and so the job that I applied for original I didn't get, but then another position opened, and then they asked me to do it, and I liked that because it was great. Because had I not tried to make the change, had I not stepped out of my comfort zone, had I not been proactive about it, I wouldn't have been eligible for them to call me and say, do you want to teach this subject? And it was life-changing.
What made you switch from English to college and career?
Well, okay. So I would have wanted to teach college career, but that position wasn't open when I had to get out. I had to change my circumstances. And there were English positions opened. And I was comfortable teaching English. I was passionate enough about the subject. I like literature and analyzing literature. I think that's fantastic. So I went about trying to get the English position because the person who was teaching college career ed wasn't ready to retire. They were going to retire in 2 years. But they were going to retire in December. So I was like, okay, so if they said they were going to retire in June, it would have been easier. Might have just stayed with special ed and toughed it out for 2 years, as opposed to, leaving and teaching English for only 2 years. You know what I mean? And anyway, there were just circumstances just changed. The person who taught college career decided to not retire in December, and he retired in June. But I had already been teaching English for 2 years. So when that position came up, the principal said, you mentioned that you wanted college career. Is that something you'd like to do? And I thought about it, and then I made the change.
The next question is, do you have any memorable moments as a teacher? Like all throughout your years of teaching?
Memorable moments. Oh, man. That is a really difficult question. I mean, it would be good to maybe have that one prepared a little bit. Off the top of my head right now, I mean, I can't think of anyone. I think if I keep talking, I'll think of one. But there's lots and lots of memorable moments. I'm sure when I stop to think about it, I'll be like, when I'm driving home, I'll think, oh yeah, that moment. I do recall there was one. It's not really a teaching moment. It was a fun moment in class where, actually just last semester, we did karaoke in class, and I tried to get all my classes to do it, and only one class did it, and it was really fun. Everyone was singing. They were saying Justin Bieber, baby. It was fun. But there have been lots of other teaching moments that were great, and that's hard.
Another question is, why did you teach at Burton?
Why did I teach at Burton? Okay, so I was subbing. So I went from Galileo, and then I had to stop to go get full time to get my English credential. So I basically picked up a couple odd jobs during that teaching credential, the year that I did it. I was a front desk clerk at St. Francis Hotel while I was doing my teaching credential. So I got my teaching credential at SF State in English, and then I was subbing, and I still didn't want to stop acting at that point. So I was acting and subbing. So I was in plays or auditioning for plays, and I would get parts and I would sub, which is my original plan. Original plan was to get my teaching credential to sub and to live in Los Angeles. But since I was in a relationship, I was living in San Francisco. So I was subbing and acting, and then I got a lot of sub gigs at Burton, and then the department head at Burton High School happened to be he was in my class in high school, graduation class in high school at SI. And there was a position opened, and he offered it to me, and I was getting married, and I took it.
What is the major difference between teaching at Lincoln and Burton?
Well, that's very interesting. Burton kind of, I was doing all special ed classes. In other words, I was teaching English and teaching, I taught English and social studies, and there was the class, each class had over enrollment, you know what I mean? So there was things that weren't good. I mean, you can't over enroll them, you know, and I tried to kind of fight it, and I couldn't really. And then this job came available at Lincoln, and I was looking to switch. And the job at Lincoln was called resource specialist job. So you were basically a special education counselor who guided students through 4 years of high school, provided you gave your IEPs and tutoring. So it's kind of a complex question. So complex answer. Sorry. So the job at Burton was too much. It was just too much to deal with in terms of numbers and inequality. And then I narrowed it down better at Lincoln, and so I went from doing a lot to just, less but more effective.
What are some hobbies?
Hobbies I have? Well, I like reading. I like to read. I'm reading a lot more now, which is good. I like movies. I love watching movies. I'm a big movie fan. Well, I was a film major. I started off in college as a film major, then switched to theater, acting, and I love movies. And I'm coaching. I'm coaching golf, and that's a lot of fun. And I think that that's kind of a hobby because it's taking up my time. It's hard, and the other thing is having a wife and kids and a full-time job and the teaching job you have to correct and papers, and there's not a lot of time for a real hobby of sorts, I think, because a lot of my time was dedicated to my kids and their hobbies. So, which was fine, and I liked that. My next hobby might be getting back into theater. That might be something I would like to do.
So, what made you fall in love with acting?
Excuse me. There's my cold. Well, ever since I was small, little, teeny. I love movies. Love movies. Passionate about movies. The movie theater section, I would open up from the Chronicle, would come into the paper. I'd immediately go to it and look at all the movie ads and just stare at the posters. And I mean, I think one year in about 1970s, early 70s, I think I saw, I'm not kidding when I say this, 64 movies. But I thought I counted, and I thought I got to 64. All the movies that I'd seen in the theater. And I mean, there it went, so I wanted to do that. I just like, that was it. And I was always afraid. I never participated in, I had a kind of a little bit of an anxiety about it, right? I mean, it's hard to get up in front of people and, and I think a lot of it had to do with my PTSD from my scar, not my scar, my fire, getting burned in the fire. So that took a long time to recover, and there's some things I never really recovered from. I was more wanting to be at home and more wanting to be, I mean, I was social, but yet not. I wanted friends and wanted to do things, yet I also wanted to be alone. And the theater was a great place to kind of go to and fantasize. So after college, I got the courage to take an acting class. And I remember when I was in high school, I went to show up to audition for a play, and I left before they called my name. Had they called my name like early, it could have been the whole different. I don't know, right? I might have been cast in a high school play, but he didn't call my name early. And so I was like, I couldn't take the anxiety of sitting and waiting. It was awful. So I got up and I left. And then finally, when I got to college, my freshman year, I took an acting class at City College, and I just wanted to, yeah. So acting class as opposed to here, now, perform. You know what I mean? It was like, teach me how to do this. Was kind, and then that started it, and then So
So would you say that acting kind of helped you conquer your anxiety?
yeah, I would say so. I think so. I mean, in a way, it created more anxiety, but it also, yeah. I mean, to have gone up and done it and to do it, yeah. I mean, that was. I don't think I had some anxiety, but yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, do you have anxiety if you do it, or is the anxiety overwhelm you? In other words, if you have anxiety, how bad is it if you're an actor? You must not have that much anxiety, or I don't know. It's the chicken or the egg. I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, I think so. It definitely did. Yeah.
Where did you learn to golf?
Where did I learn to golf?
Yeah.
My friend and I, when we were, God, I don't know, when I was in the 90s, when I living here, going to school and work, we somehow, I don't know, that's interesting. When was the first time I picked up a club? I'm not that good, by the way. I'm better than I was. I'm better, but I've never been very good. But I do like it a lot. I do. And one of the reasons why I didn't play a lot of it once I got married was I couldn't afford it. There's not a lot of leftover money to go play golf. When you play golf, that's 3 hours. So that's kind of when it stopped, when I had my kids to a certain degree. And I played a little bit. I tried to play as much as I could, but it's hard. But I guess it was in the 90s, and my friend and I picked it up, and we would go out to early 90s, and we'd go out to like Fleming, or we'd go to San Francisco, and you'd get your resident card. San Francisco Golden Gate Park, and we do play 9 holes and stuff like that.
The next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your lifetime?
Biggest challenges. I think being a parent is huge. It's a huge challenge. Being in a marriage and staying there and being, 100% locked in and that is challenging. Um, right now it's losing weight. Holy my God. That's oh, I'm hungry. Oh, you can't eat that. Oh man. Um, those are three. I think in getting my teaching credential was a challenge. I had to take a year off and I had to work at it. But I want to say, I think being a parent is, and being a teacher and trying to be good at it and be consistent is challenging on a daily basis. I think sometimes you get flatline and then you try to, pump it up a little bit and do better and be more creative and change. So I think that's always not difficult, but it's challenging.
How about in teaching? Like, what are the biggest challenges in
Biggest
teaching?
challenges in teaching. Well, I think it's trying to make the students feel like I teach college career. A lot of people don't really, a lot of students here, I think, don't value it. They don't think it's something that it's just there's too much common sense in it. But I always say to the students, it's not necessarily, it might be common sense, but it's not common knowledge. In other words, I think I'm expanding upon what is basic. Could you repeat the question again? Sorry.
What are some of the biggest challenges in your teaching?
Challenges in teaching. Okay. I think that's trying to get them interested and engaged and willing to do it, but yet appreciate the fact that I'm not trying to make it really difficult. I don't think this subject needs to be AP college career ed. I don't think but I think I need to try to make it as interesting as I can. And that's tough.
What are some of your proudest achievements or milestones in your life?
Proudest achievements. Well, I think I've performed in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And that to me is a big deal. That's a lot. And I've gotten some really, really good reviews and I've done professional theater and been paid, and I've done a lot of mostly amateur theater, like community theater. But that has been something I'm very, very, very proud of. And I'm also proud to have raised my kids pretty good, been a good dad. I think, I really worked hard on being a good father and sacrificing and being present here for students and trying to be as, an educator and an inspire.
Another question is, can you share any wisdom or advice for the future generations?
Well, I think I mentioned it earlier. I think wisdom or advice. I think that if you're proactive and you keep working even when things aren't going well. I always say life is kind of like a pendulum, swinging back and forth. Bad things, good things. Bad things happen, and often they happen at once. You know what I mean? But if you understand the things you can control, which is your choices, and you really have a really clear understanding of being able to understand what you can control and what you can't control. It's so liberating. I think that is extremely liberating. You won't worry as much about those things that are out of your control, and you will focus on what you can do, right? So, for instance, when I was teaching special education, my job duties were out of my control. The things I had to do for that job, I couldn't change. Okay? But I could change my job. Okay? So I went about trying to do that. And I was proactive. So I did everything I could to go prepare for an interview and do my best at interviewing. And even though I didn't get the job, I was very proud of myself that I had done that. I was, wow, I've been doing one thing for, I mean, it was a long time, like 15 years. Like, and I wasn't young. So I was very proud of the fact that I was proactive and I did it. And guess what happened? The pendulum swung back this way. And unfortunate circumstances had befallen somebody, which wasn't, and the job opened up. Another job opened up, but that was out of my control too. Good things could have happened to a person who decided, oh, I'm moving on and left the position. What happened was a person got ill, but that was unfortunate for them, but it was also, I stepped in and was able to take that position. So again, be proactive. Don't worry too much and dwell too hard. If things don't go well, keep trying to do the little things, and you will be ready when an opportunity comes your way, if you are preparing yourself.
Why did you become the golf coach?
Golf coach. Why? Well, what happened is the person who was coaching is retiring, and suggested that, he said, I've always kind of thought of doing it, but this person had been doing it for a long time and had, I thought maybe could have retired a long time ago. But no, I mean, that's their decision, but really is a good person, did a good job. And I was interested, but then I was talking to this person and said, hey, I think you'd be really good at it. And I got lucky. No one else wanted the position who maybe might be more qualified, right? So it was kind of lucky. Yeah. So, I mean, at other schools and other places, you never know. There could have been 4 or 5 people who really wanted that job, or wanted the coach. And I don't know, that was kind of lucky. So I just fell into it, I guess.
Mr. Fury asked this question. What did you do at your Niners job?
What do I do for the 49ers?
Yeah, 49ers.
Okay, it's not really a job. It's a volunteer gig that I get. Interesting, my daughter was on a soccer team with this teammate whose parent was a photo editor for AP photography. So I overheard this parent talking to another parent on the they said something like, oh, thank you for the opportunity. The 49er game was great. And me being very nosy was like, oh, what was the opportunity? What was the 49? So that person said, well, the person who was a photo editor said about the other person, she was a photo runner for the game over the weekend, the 49er Pittsburgh game. And I said, I'd like to do that, and she said, well, if there's an opening, I'll ask you. And a few weeks later, I was a photo runner for my first football game against Houston, 49ers Houston, at Candlestick. So, yeah, that was a long way to tell the story.
Is there anything you would like to share that we haven't covered?
Anything share that I haven't covered?
Like, do you have any regrets?
Oh, yeah.
That's what was the other question? I had a tough time. Memorable. Yeah, I mean, okay. I kind of think I wish I had made the change to teaching general education, English / college career earlier than I did. Because I like teaching English, but it takes a long time to kind of get your sea legs. In other words, I think it takes 3 years minimum, 5 years to really be confident in teaching general education. And you need to teach similar things. You have to have consistency, and you have to do it over a period of time. And I think that then you get good. So I guess I wish I had kind of branched out a little earlier, because I think I can be my authentic self. And again, talking about, I think you want to be your authentic self in your workplace. I think you want your personality to fit where you are. And it needs to match very well. I like myself at the job I'm doing. You know what I mean? You have, so again, your authentic self where you're working. And that's where I'm happy doing now. Yeah.
And then,
Hope that answered your question.
how many schools have you worked at? 3?
Worked at well, I've done summer school a lot. I've done lots of years of summer school. For a number of years, I did a lot of years of summer school. So, but I worked at Burton, Galileo, Burton, and Lincoln.
Okay.
And I've been at Lincoln for, 20 years. It'll be 20 years in the fall. So I started in 04, so it's spring. So I started in the fall of 04.
Wait, did we ask how long you teach for?
How long do you teach for? Like
How long have I been teaching for?
Yeah.
Well, including the paraprofessional work,
Yeah.
over 30 years, right? So over 30 years. I'd say 34 years.
And
But that might be, yeah. All of 90 to 90 did. Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Last one. You said like you're not done with acting yet. So like, what do you mean by that? Like, if you had
Well,
another opportunity?
I practice monologues on occasion. I have monologues I practice. I'd like to audition again. I want to get my headshots going on and go out and audition and I'd like to try to do voiceovers. I kind of have a good sense of character voices. I do a good Elmo imitation.
Really?
But I want to see what happens.
Okay.
I don't have any regrets of not doing it full time, but I think I'd be at a really good space to go back.
Alright.
I think I'd be a really good mental space, physical and mental space when I go back, when I return. So
Last question.
Last
Can you do
question.
like an example of your acting? Like just give us like like a famous line.
I'll do my Elmo imitation,
Okay.
but I have a cold.
That's fine.
sorry.
Just try your best.
What do you want me to say? What do you want Elmo? You have to tell me what Elmo would say.
Hi, I'm Mr. Sulivan. I teach at Lincoln High School.
That's Elmo. Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I don't know. My voice. I've been sick. So let me see. Okay. Elmo said, "Hello. Thank you for the interview. Everyone's so nice. Thank you. Bye bye. Oh, Elmo's red. Don't forget."
Thank you.
That wasn't.